Hi everyone, it's Kim. Thanks for joining me. I was ecstatic when Karen released her July collection of 10 new dies and 5 new stamp sets, several new pop-ups and several add-on sets, and dies that work with dies that we already have from Karen in her other collections. So she has a wonderful introduction video to this set. I'm going to run through them real quick. I haven't had the stamps and dies for very long. They just arrived. So I haven't had a lot of time to play with them, but I am going to share a couple things with you today. Real quick, let's look at the stamps. Of course, they coordinate with all the new die sets. And if you haven't seen Karen's introduction video, I encourage you to go watch that. And she also has some wonderful card samples from her design team. But this will give you kind of an idea of what some of the dies are about if you read some of those sentiments real quick. And let's take a look at the dies real quick. And then I'm going to just show you what I've had a chance to work on. So the first one is the Gazebo Stage add-on. This works with the Stage die. And we are going to look at this. You know how I love that Stage die. And then there's a little bench pop-up that does work with the stage, the gazebo, or the stage, with or without the gazebo. It also works in a card, so we'll take a look at that, what's all in that set. And then another paper people with some summer styles. So we'll talk about this die because if you don't have the original paper people, you can still just get this die and dress a person. And then there's a Cascade Pop-up. This is really a cool die. And again, I encourage you to go watch Karen's video. I haven't had a chance to play with these because, again, I just received the dies. So I am excited to play with these. And there are some great food dies. First, we have mealtime elements. And while these do work with her new dies, think of all the other things we can do with these little tidbits of food. Dessert elements. I know I'll be getting hungry when I start to make with these dies. Then we have a Toolbox pop-up. And it can also be a 6-pack of whatever your drink preference is. So this will be a fun new pop-up. And then the Tool Time Stage add-ons. So again, another way to use the Toolbox and add it to the stage. So I haven't had time to play with this one yet, but I will. So what I want to do today is start with the Gazebo add-on. So we've got the Gazebo stage add-on, I should say. So you do need the stage pop-up to use the Gazebo add-on. So I'm going to show you the card like this. This is what I made. And this is how you could pull it out of an envelope. And then, as you know, you just pop up the bottom. Let me pop this up here, and then I can turn it since the gazebo kind of covers up what's inside. But you can set it up like this. You see the top of the gazebo and then how it looks. And I used a summer-dressed person in there and the little bench. And I know it's probably kind of hard to see some of that detail in there. The bench has a little table, if you can see it right over here, right there. And that is what actually pulls that little bench up. And the bench is very easy to use and very easy to add. You put everything on your stage before you add this gazebo piece. Karen has a great video showing you how to do the gazebo and add it to the stage. And then the greenery, the vine. Now she puts it down on this side. As we can kind of see here, she's got some hints of how to do that. And I didn't add the little flowers to mine, but you can add the flowers. And then on my table there, if you can see it, I have the little strawberries. So we'll look at that here. That's from one of, I believe that's from one of the food dyes. So we'll take a look at that. Then we have a topiary plant here in the very front, if you can see that. And I put that with one of the little arms to hold it up on the base of the stage. And then there's a couple other little plants over here. I know it's hard to see on the side, but those are with the bench die, or we'll take a look at that as well. So let me show you what I used. And again, I know it's kind of hard to see with the gazebo over the top, but to set this up is so cool. And I did use on the bottom of it, sitting here thinking of you. So let's start with the stamp set first. This is called Garden Greetings, so you can take a look at what those say real quick. Some great stamps to use with the bench or with the gazebo, or if you just have a garden scene. And then the gazebo stage add-on. So there's these 4 pieces. So the roof, the fence around the side, and then the pieces to make like the post to hold the roof up. And then for my bench, that's the little bench pop-up. And that includes the vine and the topiary, the flowers, and then the plant. But the bench is actually very, very simple to put together and to make it into a pop-up. And of course, you can make your bench any color. Let's turn around. I'll show you from the back. You can see how decorative that is. And then I've got my lady just sitting there relaxing, getting out of this heat that so many of us are experiencing right now. And that's with the Paper People Summer Styles. And what I love about this is if you don't have the original Paper People die, so here's the original one, you can still, if you just have this one die, you can still make people because the person die is in here. And then it also includes hairstyles plus the new outfits. And then there's like a beach towel. With the way it's fringed, I would say if you're in need of a rug for something, you could use it for a rug as well. And then it does coordinate with a tiny accessory. So if you have some of these other dies, this is sized to work with those. But let's compare it to the original Paper People die. And you can see the difference in outfits. So now you can mix and match. And the hairstyles, while they're somewhat similar, there's enough difference. So you will have a new set of hairstyles that, if you want to work with them in conjunction with the other dice that you can. But if you don't have the original Paper People, you can still make people with just this die set. You don't have to have both die sets. So that's kind of nice to have this. And if you do have the other one, well, now you can start cutting out 2 bodies at once. You can make more people than before. And what I love about this one is those little flip-flops. I think those are so cute. The other die set has shoes. This one has flip-flops. And I don't know, can you see her little flip-flops in there? They are so cute and so easy to add on to the feet. So I loved playing with this. And I also want to show you how you can use the bench die just in a regular card. You don't have to have the gazebo to use this die or the platform. So I was going to just make a garden scene, and then I kind of got off on another track. When I was looking at this roof for the gazebo, I thought, you could make that into a skirt. So let me show you this. That is the skirt. This is the gazebo roof. If you didn't know that, hopefully you wouldn't know that's a roof. But there's my bride and groom. And then when I open it up, then I've got my bench. And I think I needed to use a little heavier cardstock on my bench because this is kind of soft cardstock. But you can see how that pops up. And it's this table over here, the base of the table, that actually makes this pop up. So I think that is so cool. You could use, again, any color. If I wanted to make another set of bride and groom, I could put them seated on the bench, but I just made a second bouquet and just left that there and used the vines from the little bench pop-up, decorated them with the flowers, and then just best wishes. One thing on this table, it is set, you can ink that up, and then the ink will transfer from those embossing lines onto your paper. Because mine is so kind of a decorated shiny paper, I just let the embossing do the work on its own and added a few more flowers there. And then for my bride and groom, so the bride's skirt is one of the gazebos. So I just cut this out and I made a cone. I just kind of curled it around and made a cone first, glued this edge to this tab, and then I just flattened it out. I used this kind of as my guide. I wanted to kind of make that symmetrical as best I could. And I was so worried about the shingle look on her skirt, but this is handmade paper, so it took a couple times to cut, and then that brick was really embossed in there. But I don't think, unless I told somebody, those were roof tiles, that they would really know that. Then my body for my bride and my groom are from the paper People. The top of the bride's dress is just like this little tank top here, and her veil is actually the skirt. And I just kind of pulled it farther down on her head and kind of to one side. Her hair comes from this set, and the bouquet is actually the topiary is holding these little flowers on there. And then this plant, I turned it upside down, and I did cut it out of a light green, and then I just took a white gel pen on top of it. That's what this is here, this plant. I just flipped it around and just used then the vines to decorate, and the little flowers in her hair are the little flowers from the bench set. Now, for the groom, he has his hair and his body from the new paper People, but I needed to have a tux. And Karen does have from the Wedding Charms this dress and tux. It's a little skinny for the People. It works, but for him, and I should have cut out a body, but what I have to do is his arms extend beyond the tux, and same thing like for his outer part of his legs. So I need his hands, so I automatically just cut up a little bit for his hands, and then I just cut the arms off. You can't tell that from here, but otherwise they stick out. And on his legs, that before I put the tux on, I just trim up on his legs a little bit so it doesn't stick out. And you could add the shoes, but say you only have this set and you don't want to put flip-flops on him. This guy really technically doesn't have any shoes. I just colored his foot black. And because he's tucked in behind her, you really don't notice that. If you have the other set, you could certainly cut out some shoes. So this kind of went a different way from what I intended it to be, but you can see how the bench pops up inside a card. You don't have to just use it for the gazebo. But now you have a couple ways to use that bench with or without the People. You could obviously put many other things on that bench. So when Karen first showed on her video the gazebo, all I could think of is, oh, I can make a merry-go-round. So I did. I knew there were going to be some things I had to change on this, and there's a reason I'm not closing this and opening it, because as much as I tried to get this to work, knowing these pieces would move up and down, I made some adjustments down below for that. I knew the piece in the center, that like center bar there, which you can't really see, would also go up and down. So I didn't glue in the center here so it could move. Let's just say I need to refine the technique. So this one will always stay open, but I was glad I was able to figure it out. It was a challenge to play with. And one other thing I want to show you, and I'm going to go back to this. Karen, on her gazebo video, how to construct it and put it together with the stage, showed a couple new things. So normally we would push this down. Let's see, there we go. And this could mail in a 6x9-inch envelope. But she also showed how you could pop this up the other way, and then you can mail this in a smaller envelope. Now, I have not measured what size envelope this would take, but it's definitely smaller than a 6x9. And if you didn't have the gazebo on the top, think how much smaller. You could maybe mail that in an A2 envelope then. So if you didn't want such a large envelope, here's another way to do it, to pop that stage up the other way. And she did share one other little tip. And again, I'm not going to close this, but this cardstock was pretty lightweight, and we know sometimes it doesn't pop up in here really good. Well, she showed a little trick of how we could add a piece to the side here when this is popped down. And I encourage you, if you have the stage, watch this video, even if you don't have the gazebo yet, because there's a couple of great tips that we can use for the stage, however we decorate it. So this was my kind of experiment. What could I do with that gazebo? And then for my horse, that's for the leaping animals. It's actually the unicorn. I just didn't put the little horn piece there for my unicorn. And I just thought that worked good for horses kind of in the gazebo. I probably could have gotten away with just 4 horses instead of 6. I would have had a little more room. But again, experiment. I learned a lot from doing this. I know maybe if I can refine it a little bit, I could open and close this. But for right now, this one has to just stay open. Otherwise, my poles are just a mess. So that is a few of the new dies from Karen. And we will be obviously looking at the other ones here in the very near future. There was just so many things to play with and just not enough time. So thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you again in a future video.